let's end this grading with the Chicago Sky.
Yeah, boy.
And man, I know we have a lot to say about this. The Chicago Sky definitely, made their pick with HVL, so
Mm.
Hailey Van Lith. And they
Angel
also got
Reese reunited.
reunited for sure. And then they got Aisha Sioka. So
Mhm.
Aisha Sioka at I think that was number 10 overall. So they had back-to-back picks. And at first, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of like, why didn't they do HVL first? But looking at the player that looking at Aisha,
Mhm.
they got an excellent international player at the number 10. So I get, I guess they could just be interchangeable, but I'm really excited about Hailey Van Lith on many levels. Not only is she reuniting with Angel, but she said in a press conference afterwards that she likes being around Angel because Angel brings out the best in the players that she plays with. And she wants the best to be brought out in her because she doesn't even think that it's happened yet, really, which is so crazy because we've seen how hard she plays, what a dedicated player she is, and how she goes out and leaves it on the floor every night. So I'm excited to see them play together. And I'm excited for the Chicago Sky because they are a young team on the rise. So when you talk about these teams that they have all the pieces to like win now, but also win later. I feel like, you get a couple more players on that team, you lock that in, and you have that in the Chicago Sky. Not only do you have a new coaching staff, but you also have a young team who is really hungry, and they also get the business of basketball as well. I feel like both, we'll just talk about Angel and Hailey Van Lith, like they both get what it is, like the whole entire package of being a WNBA player. So I'm just excited that not only will the basketball have synergy, but also the business minds on this team. But I'm excited for this guy. I think they did a
Yeah.
great job in this draft. I give them a solid A for sure.
Same. Not too much to add there. I just will say that we've already kind of spoken about how the Sky are an organization that want to win, but they also don't mind developing their talent. A lot of their coaching staff has a player development background. And when you talk about HBL, we saw what the system did for her transferring from LSU to TCU and how that made a world of difference, and how having a coaching staff really invested in her, not only as a player, but as a person, made a huge difference for her. And I think that Sky organization is just that. And I think it's just going to be beneficial to her, not only continuing as she grows in the professional league, but just in this initial year, making that jump, making that transition. So really happy for her. I think this is going to be a great situation. Chicago's a great city. I've been several times, love it. And they keep getting like a nice, popular Instagram, cool, just young, hip squad in Chicago. And I love that for them. But before we move on to connecting changes everything, real quick, surprises, losers of the draft. I think for me, we were kind of texting about it in our group chat. Deja Kelly not getting drafted at all is kind of a surprise to me. Um, I think that can also be attributed to we've been talking about the transfer portal and how it can be a gift and a curse. As we know, UNC, she was there for I think 3 years, and was on a stage going what I think they ended up in the Sweet 16 last year. I think that's as far as they got. Emma, you can fact check me on that. I think it was a Sweet 16, could have been the Elite Eight, maybe. Put her on a stage that maybe people now knew her name that weren't familiar with her. Goes to Oregon, doesn't have that same success. The team doesn't have that same success. Although she, as an individual, great stat line, great numbers, the team doesn't have that success, which then kind of trickles down to maybe her value in the draft. Um, and maybe in a sense, kind of was a catalyst in maybe her not getting drafted this year. But I was surprised that a team didn't kind of just take into consideration what she is as an overall player, both at Oregon and UNC, and still make that pick. So that was probably my biggest surprise. What about yours?
I will say this with her specifically. We see the draft every year, and we traditionally think of that being the way that people get to the W.
Mhm.
And yes, it is a way, but we also have to remember that a lot of people get cut too.
That's
Okay.
right.
A
That's
lot of people get cut, whether it be first, second, third, whatever round it is, they get cut. And then there are also players who they go and play overseas for a
mhm.
year, or maybe they get picked up in, like an
FIBA.
athletes unlimited or something.
Yeah.
And then they come back and they ball out and
Mhm.
they're in the WNBA for the rest of their career. And so
Erica
while
Wheeler.
those
Erica Wheeler is a big name that I think of in that regard, that journey.
absolutely. So while, this is a path, there are so many paths to playing in the W, and there's so many stories that aren't necessarily I got drafted and I went on the team and I stayed there, because there could be somebody who was drafted and they'll get cut in the first week of training camp or whatever
You're not
the
wrong.
case may be. So nothing is on lock, and it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that she won't be. It just means that she wasn't today. And so
Absolutely.
I just, for every player that either went lower than they thought, weren't drafted, weren't invited, whatever the case may be, that doesn't mean that you are not going to be in the W. I just want to say that. I will say this: Cheyenne Sellers falling to the second round really, really surprised me. But again, it's really about placement, right? And
Mm.
not necessarily even when you get drafted. You could say that for every draft. And so, I'll be really excited to see what she does at Golden State. I think they got a great, great player in the 17th overall pick. And then Tahina Pau, she went later than I thought she would, just off the strength of, seeing her play for all these years. We just saw her play in the championship. Um, Not to say that, her stat line was incredibly stellar, but it was really, really solid. She's a solid player who's going to give you solid minutes every single night, and she has heart. Now, I'm glad that she went to Atlanta, because I can see her being it's kind of hard to say this because we don't really know what the makeup of the Atlanta team is going to be, because they're so different this year, but I can see her being a fan favorite in Atlanta for sure. And so, even though I was kind of shocked that she went a little bit lower than I thought, I'm glad where she landed as a player. So those would be, my two, that I was just a little like, interesting. I also think Bree Hall going to Indiana could be a huge sleeper pick. She's reuniting with Aaliyah Boston. She is fantastic on every single level. Love her as a player. Yes, 8 a.m. Exposure said Breezy will be a great fit in Indy. Defense needed. Absolutely. And I can see her playing alongside so many of the players that are there. I think that team chemistry is going to be on 1,000 this year, and she'll be a part of that. So even though these are players that I would be like, definitely kind of like fell in the draft, I think they were set up for success in a lot of ways in the teams that they ended up on.